Have you ever thought about someone you hadn't spoken to in years, only to have them call you later that same day? Or maybe you've noticed the same number appearing everywhere you go. It shows up on a receipt, then on a license plate, and later that evening, you glance at the clock, and there it is again. At first, you ignore it, but after seeing it repeatedly, a question quietly forms in your mind. Is it really just a coincidence? Almost everyone has experienced moments like these. A stranger offers advice that feels like the exact answer to a problem you've been struggling with. You randomly discover a book that changes your perspective. An opportunity appears just as you're about to give up on a dream. Most people brush these moments aside and move on. Others can't help but wonder if they're part of something larger. Whether you believe their messages, remarkable timing, or simply the way the human mind works, meaningful coincidences have fascinated people for thousands of years. They challenge one of our deepest assumptions, that life is nothing more than a series of random events. But what if paying closer attention could change the way we understand our own lives? From childhood, we're taught to see the world through logic. Every event has a cause, every problem has a solution. If something can't be measured or explained, it's usually dismissed as chance. That way of thinking has brought humanity incredible progress. It has allowed us to build civilizations, explore space, and unlock the secrets of science. But while logic teaches us how the world works, it doesn't always explain why certain moments stay with us forever. Think back to when you were a child. Curiosity came naturally. You noticed tiny details that adults ignored. Every day felt filled with discovery because you weren't constantly distracted by responsibilities or routines. As adults, life becomes different. Our days are filled with meetings, deadlines, notifications, and endless scrolling. We become so focused on reaching the next task that we often stop noticing what's happening right in front of us. Psychologists have long understood that attention shapes perception. Every second, your brain receives an overwhelming amount of information. If it tried to process everything at once, you'd quickly become exhausted. Instead, it filters reality, deciding what deserves your attention and what can safely be ignored. You've probably experienced this yourself. Imagine you've decided to buy a specific model of car. Before making that decision, you rarely noticed it on the road, but afterward, it suddenly seems to appear everywhere. The cars didn't magically multiply overnight. Your attention simply changed. The same thing happens with opportunities. Someone focused only on obstacles often notices more obstacles. Someone actively looking for possibilities begins recognizing opportunities that others completely overlook. The world itself may not have changed, but the way it's being observed certainly has. This simple idea becomes even more interesting when we look at the history of meaningful coincidences. Long before modern psychology existed, ancient cultures believed the universe followed repeating patterns. Farmers watched the changing seasons. Sailors navigated by the stars. Philosophers observed that nature moved through cycles rather than chaos. Everything seemed connected. Centuries later, Swiss psychologist Carl Jung became fascinated by stories from his patients, describing extraordinary coincidences that felt deeply personal. He noticed something surprising. These experiences often happened during life's biggest turning points, when someone was questioning their future, recovering from loss, beginning a new relationship, or searching for a new purpose. Unexpected events seemed to appear at exactly the right time. Jung called these experiences synchronicities, meaningful coincidences connected not through obvious cause and effect, but through the significance they held for the person experiencing them. Whether his theory is ultimately right or wrong, it raises a fascinating possibility. Maybe the real value of these moments isn't proving that the universe is sending hidden messages. Maybe their value lies in reminding us to slow down long enough to notice the moments that might otherwise pass us by. Because sometimes, the smallest event can quietly become the beginning of a completely different future. Life has a strange way of making sense, only when we look back. Think about the biggest turning points in your own life. Chances are, they didn't begin with a grand plan. They started with something small, an unexpected conversation, a delayed trip, a recommendation from a friend, or a random decision that seemed insignificant at the time. Only later did you realize how much that single moment changed everything. Maybe that's why meaningful coincidences capture our attention so deeply. They remind us that life isn't always as predictable as we imagine. Of course, not every coincidence is a hidden message. Human beings are naturally wired to recognize patterns. It's one of the reasons our ancestors survived. Recognizing changes in weather, tracking animals, or noticing danger all depended on our ability to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information. That same ability is still part of us today. Sometimes it helps us discover opportunities. Other times, it causes us to find connections where none actually exist. That's why it's important to approach synchronicities with curiosity rather than certainty. Instead of immediately deciding that every unusual event has a supernatural explanation or dismissing it completely, we can simply ask a better question. What can I learn from this moment? That question changes everything. Imagine you keep hearing people mention the same career field you've secretly been interested in. One friend talks about it. Then you watch an interview with someone working in that industry. A few days later, a book on the subject catches your attention. Maybe it's coincidence, or maybe your mind has become more aware because the idea already mattered to you. Either way, the result is the same. You're paying attention, and paying attention often leads to better decisions. This is something successful people understand remarkably well. Many entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, and inventors don't describe success as pure luck. Instead, they talk about preparation. They spent years learning, improving, and staying curious. Then, when the right opportunity appeared, they recognized it while others walked right past. In other words, opportunity often becomes visible only to those who are ready to see it. Perhaps that's one of the greatest lessons hidden inside the idea of synchronicity. Awareness creates possibilities. When we move through life on autopilot, we miss countless opportunities. We overlook conversations, ignore ideas, dismiss instincts. But when we slow down, even for a moment, we begin noticing details that were always there. This doesn't require believing in anything mystical. It simply requires being present. You can practice this in surprisingly simple ways. Spend a few minutes each day without your phone. Take a walk without listening to music. Write down experiences that stayed in your mind and ask yourself why they felt important. Over time, you'll begin noticing recurring themes in your own life. Not because reality has suddenly changed, but because your awareness has. And awareness has a remarkable way of changing everything. Life rarely transforms because of one dramatic event. More often, it's shaped by dozens of small choices that seem ordinary in the moment. Reading one book, accepting one invitation, starting one conversation, making one difficult decision. Choosing to keep going when giving up would have been easier. Looking back, these moments often appear connected, forming the story of who we eventually become. Whether you call those connections coincidence, intuition, or synchronicity doesn't really matter. What matters is what you choose to do after noticing them. Because recognizing an opportunity means very little if you never act on it. The most meaningful coincidences don't replace effort. They inspire it. They encourage us to ask better questions, remain open to new possibilities, and trust that growth often begins with a single unexpected moment. So the next time life surprises you with something that feels too perfectly timed to ignore, don't rush to explain it away. Pause, take a breath, reflect on why it caught your attention. Maybe it's simply chance. Maybe it's your subconscious connecting pieces you've overlooked. Or maybe it's just a reminder that life is richer, stranger, and more interesting than we sometimes allow ourselves to believe. Whatever the explanation, those moments invite us to become more aware. And awareness is often where meaningful change begins. Because in the end, the greatest mystery isn't whether coincidences are random. The greatest mystery is how a single ordinary moment can quietly reshape an entire life. If this documentary gave you a new perspective, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a coincidence that felt impossible to forget? Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoy documentaries that explore psychology, philosophy, history, and the mysteries of the human mind, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay observant, and remember, sometimes the moments that seem the smallest today become the stories you'll remember for the rest of your life.